Yeah, I feel like whenever you're doing something, you just make it seem.
All right, if you guys haven't already, make sure to sign in since that really helps us with funding and making sure how many people are here. But without further ado, let's get ahead on the agenda. And then we just have a couple of things to show you guys, big announcements really. So we have a semester recap of all the different things that we did this semester, upcoming events that you guys can come to, especially the League Code tournament, which we'll get into later, but that has $1,000 worth of rewards. So please come on into that if you want money and to further your League Code skills as well. And then we have exec board applications that we'll be giving out to you guys, and then a fireside chat with a software engineer from DataDog who can share his experiences with you guys so you can learn. Okay, so first starting with the semester recap, we had several workshops over the semester, several socials. The first couple are, I think the first one is our GBM, and the second is one that we did with Redis streams and sort of cloud database caching, right? And then we have several other workshops. Some of them are for elementary and middle schoolers, like the one in the corner, which we collaborated with Wixie for. The middle one that you can see is obviously in the Rice game room. We're gonna have one more of that, so be sure to come on down. I don't know the exact date, but I believe is it next week? In 2 weeks from now, I believe. But we'll have the upcoming events in just a second. But yeah, we're gonna continue having workshops in the future and in this semester, next semester, and hopefully forever. But we'll get more into exactly how we're gonna switch up the workshops and add some more new ones, just so you guys have a more diverse set of skills that you're learning from them. And that'll be in a couple of slides from now. Yep, those are some more from our bowling social. So make sure to come on to our final bowling social of this semester. Yeah, so we did decide to split our 2 workshops and add an extra day. So more workshops for you guys. These are the next 3 that we have, the next 3 technical workshops. And in the next slide, we'll focus on more professional development workshops for you guys to further those sort of skills. But this is mainly for the different like technical programming aspects. For example, on the 8th, we have one next week where we're collaborating with LeadGator to have one focused on technical interviews. We also have one next Wednesday, the day right after that, cloud hosting using DigitalOcean, which is something very unique that I've never really seen before. But if you are interested in cloud hosting or just want to get some more experience in that, be sure to come on down to that one. And then the week after that, we have real-time communication using Socket.io. That's one that I used in my internship a little bit. And I know a lot of people use those for like real-time chat, building real-time chatting services and platforms and things like that. So that's a big one. Make sure to come on down to that one, especially because it's one of our last workshops, technical workshops of the semester. And speaking of technical workshops, let's focus on now the professional development workshops, which these guys will explain to you guys.
Yeah, so we're going to be starting like a professional development series. We want to get like those type of workshops out to you guys. So you can see the first one is actually tomorrow. We have an intro to technical project management. Do you want to maybe talk about that?
Yeah, so basically we're gonna have a guest speaker tomorrow, and he already has experience obviously in technical project management, so he's just gonna come in and talk to you guys about basically what that entails and like see if that's something maybe you guys would be interested in. And also there is an internship opportunity for an initiative he's running, so if you guys be interested in that, then definitely show up tomorrow.
Yeah, and then there's also we rescheduled our fireside chat with a Microsoft software engineer. So that's going to be in a week from today. And Cameron's going to actually be taking over that. So he doesn't really need to talk about it because we've already kind of, gave a gist. And then our last workshop is the internship readiness and alternative paths workshop. So this is going to be like a 2-part workshop, helping people like prepare for internships upcoming for summer. And then also for people that weren't able to land something, maybe some alternative things you could do. But yeah, pretty excited for that. And then see what's next. And then yeah, also our next upcoming event is our League Code tournament. So we had to actually reschedule this to Sunday, April 13th. And that's because the blue and orange game, so that's gonna be on Sunday now. I don't know if, sorry, if you want to talk more about that.
There's more information on the next slide, so I'll mention it there.
Okay, sounds good.
But yeah, after that, our final event of this year is gonna be our bowling social. It's in 3 weeks, 3 weeks from today. It's always a fun time to come out, hang out. You saw a couple of pictures in the past, like a couple slides, but it's always a great time, end of year. Yeah, so like we mentioned, the League Code tournament date has been shifted by one day, to April 13th instead of April 12th. If you haven't already, please sign the interest form if you're interested in this. Because I think the next slide might interest you a bit more. So we're splitting up the tournament into 2 brackets. There's going to be an advanced bracket for people who are more familiar with League Code tournaments, and a beginner track for those who are there just for fun, those who aren't super experienced with League Code. Our advanced track, the top prize is $259, with split up amongst like yearly League Code premiums and then Amazon gift cards as well, and the other prizes that are here as well. The beginner track, there's also top prizes for that as well, with just Amazon gift cards. If you get out early, we're going to be hosting raffles as well, just like some Kahoots, some little fun games that keep you active. And then there's 5 winners of the raffles. Those will each be earning $25. Thank you so much to UFS CISE. They believed in us with the tournament, so they're giving us all this money, $1,000, and we also have T-shirts planned. Those will be our kind of semester T-shirts for the semester, with that League Code tournament theme. All right, so this will be my last GBM. I've been on the board for 3 years now, like 6 semesters as treasurer, vice president, and now president. And I say this like purely genuinely, the board that I've hired over the past like couple semesters, up here, some of you are in the audience, it's probably one of my greatest accomplishments. Just like having these people take over. You already saw how we're splitting up our workshops from going into like sporadic workshops when I first started into now weekly technical workshops plus professional development workshops hosted by a professional development team. You saw some of our graphics by our outreach team. You're going to get some of our T-shirts at the League Code tournament from our marketing team. This work is super great to get into. But yeah, we have some openings for those marketing and outreach teams. If any of you are interested in graphic design, the more social aspects of the club, these 2 positions are for you. So for marketing lead, this role involves more so marketing the club. So that involves like merch designs, T-shirts, stickers, pins, stuff like that, as well as helping to manage our budget for the advertising portion. If you're interested more so in quantity over quantity of graphic designs, we have openings on our social lead side where they help design all of our graphics. Robert, can you raise your hand? If you have any questions about marketing team, reach out to Robert, and then Kylie, Han, could you raise your hands? If you have any questions about outreach team, please talk to them afterwards. We had a great opportunity to get some experience on your resume. And now, I believe we have a sign-in code here. We're going to post it as well afterwards. You all good? And now on to Daniel to host our guest speaker. I guess you can speak for now. Perfect. Zoom. The show is. So this one. Yeah, no, not that. Try to screen it. You guys can come up for more pizza. I think there's still a bit more. I like actually have some of the schools. Yeah, nice. Okay. If you button. Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me, Alex?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How are you
How's the
doing?
audio on my end?
Doing good or?
Yeah, I am doing good. Okay, this is awkward. I just got paged for an incident just right now. If you give me 5 minutes, I can go handle this and I promise I'll come back.
No, of course, yeah. We'll just do something in the meantime anyways.
Okay, yeah, play some cool music or something. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
All right, 5 minute break. I think yes,
We got like page for some incident, so
Alright, I'll see you tomorrow.
Never.
yeah.
Hey yo, sorry about that. It was kind of a false alarm.
I'm gonna turn this up. So, I'm sure I'm probably. All right, so I'm just gonna introduce you real quick because I don't think everybody knows you here. So hey, everybody, we're gonna start the fireside chat now. So Alex is a recent new grad from UF. He's a current software engineer at DataDog, and he was a past Clubfinity tech lead. So are you here for like the GBM? Are you here for the GBM? Oh, really? You have the room booked.
until 8 p.m.
Yeah, until 8 p.m. Yeah. All right, well, sorry about that. So that's Alex. I'm gonna start off. So the first question is, can you tell the audience a bit about yourself and your journey to becoming a software engineer at Datadog?
Yeah, sure thing. Hi guys, nice to meet you all. Some might know me, most probably don't since I've been gone for almost a year now. My name is Alex. I was a UF student from 2020 to 2024. I graduated that spring of 2024. I was born and raised in Gainesville, and so going to UF was not a big change for me to leave home. And I spent a lot of time, I guess, making friends, working on computer stuff while I was there. I did a couple internships during my tenure as a University of Florida student. I worked at Nordstrom in the past, and I worked at a company called Lumen that did cybersecurity. And then when new grad recruiting season came around, I got really lucky and I got a couple of interviews at some good companies and I got some cool offers and I ended up going with DataDog. Some people might know what that company is, some people might not. I can talk more about that in the future, but that's a brief overview of my career at University of Florida.
Wow, that's actually really cool. I didn't know you grew up in Gainesville. So that's a crazy experience. So
Why are we bullshitting?
you mentioned Datadog. Could you describe your team and your role?
Yeah. So I work on a distributed systems team. We're called the Task Platform, and really what we do is we allow other teams within Datadog to run and execute tasks. I know that's really vague and really broad, and we kind of manage a lot of different systems. I thought what might be cool for this sort of introduction part as to what we do is I know we practice doing like a shared whiteboard. Maybe I could draw some of our distributed systems for you guys and just walk through, you know, get some practice looking at what system design looks like and what a distributed systems engineer looks at from day to day.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna do a quick question. Have any of you guys like have experience with system design or have you guys been like asked it in an interview before? Nobody? Okay. So that's actually kind of common because it's more for like new grad. You might see it for like Netflix for interviews, but system design is definitely something you want to know. So this will be pretty exciting. Let's see. I'm gonna share a whiteboard and we'll see if this works. And let me know if you're seeing that, Alex.
Yeah, I got it. I got a little marker too. This is awesome.
Nice.
Okay. This is gonna be rough. I'm not gonna take too much time, and I'm just working on a trackpad right here, so it's not gonna be pretty either. I'll start by talking about what distributed systems is. So basically what it means is you have a bunch of different machines and a bunch of different like physical locations, and they're all running, different code and they're all communicating over a network connection. So I'm gonna draw a bunch of little boxes and little database symbols here, and you can kind of like imagine those are all just different machines in data centers, right? So these massive houses that store all these computers. I'll start by talking about, so one of the most complex systems that we own is called a distributed scheduler. And so what that does is it basically takes in, I'm gonna, draw a box here for these are our customers. So C for customers, because I really am not gonna draw out the whole word right now. And we're going to take in a bunch of, we call it scheduled definitions. So just a bunch of payloads that say, hey, I want to, run a schedule that does something every 5 minutes. And the something we don't really care about, but we're going to do the schedule math for them. So if they tell us they want something to do, a task every 5 minutes, that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that this thing runs every 5 minutes. And what we're going to produce out here is I guess we're going to call it our payload. And in the middle here, this is where I'm going to sort of draw our distributed scheduler. And it's going to take in a bunch of customer requests for schedules, and it's going to do the math and, produce some schedules for these customers. At the top end here, we have an API. Boom. And an API it stands for Application Programming Interface. So the purpose of our API is to allow clients to sort of connect and have a clear way to define what they want to send us. So one example API route that we have is something called create schedules. And it's pretty simple. You just send us a create schedules request over a wire, so over the network. And then our API is going to take that create schedules request and it's going to create a schedule. Now, creating a schedule is sort of the fun part. So we have the first part of our distributed scheduler here. And I'm going to draw this as a little cylinder. This is going to be a Postgres instance. For those of you who aren't familiar, Postgres is a data store. And I'll kind of walk through why we choose Postgres for some of the things that we do versus other data stores. But just for now, I'm going to start by walking you through the full path. So our API is going to make this create schedule request to Postgres, which means it's going to send a query that's going to add a row to a table in here that says now we have a new schedule. And the schedule is going to fit whatever definition that this client sent us here. So that's like our first interaction there with the database. So that's, a broad level how someone would send a schedule to us. Now, how do we do some math and produce the output of that schedule? That's I guess the more interesting part. We have another data store on the other side of our application, and this is not Postgres. This is Cassandra, which we indicate with like a little C star here. And again, I'll talk about why we choose the different data stores, but we need another data store here so that we have something called static stability. So if Postgres were to completely go down, we still need to be able to execute and produce schedules. So that's why we have sort of two sources of truth here to separate what's called the control plane, so this side, and then the data plane, so this side. And again, I haven't talked about what goes on over here, and that's what I'm sort of going to get to now. In order to maintain state between Postgres and Cassandra, we have this thing called the replicator, which is pretty cool. Its job is just to take schedules from Postgres, reform them, and then put them into Cassandra. So if the replicator goes down again, like if this system fails or if the network, cuts off here, we still have Postgres and Cassandra alive, and we're still able to use the sources of truth in our data stores. And then finally, the fun part is we have these things called the executors, which is our final part of the system here. I'm just going to denote this with EX. So what these executors do is they read schedules from Cassandra, they do a bunch of math, and then they put those schedules into the payload. So wherever the customer wants us to send them, we'll send those schedules every 5 minutes. This is sort of the full operation that we have going on here. Again, this is a really rough drawing. You can imagine all these things are different machines and different systems and different programs running. The goal is to maintain something called static stability. It's sort of like, in the 1 in a million case that your machine just breaks or that your network falls apart or that something goes wrong in any part of the system, you should still be able to operate that system with some level of confidence, right? And static stability means that, for example, if Postgres were to fail, then we don't have the replicator replicating anything anymore, but we're still able to grab the schedules that we know we have in Cassandra, and we're still able to do some scheduling math and execute those to our payload, right? So even if we lose the API side of things, we still have static stability with Cassandra. If we were to lose Cassandra, we do keep an in-memory cache in the executors, so these can operate on their own too. And I think the whole problem with distributed systems is you have to think about the 1 in a million case. So in the 1 in a million case where something breaks that you don't expect it to break, you should be able to handle that fault tolerance. And the 1 in a million case, when you have a lot of different systems and a lot of different, throughput, it actually happens pretty frequently. So you have to be prepared to handle these things. And that's why we design sort of complex systems like this. And again, it doesn't look too complex, but we have a lot of, moving parts here in order to handle different cases of stuff breaking, basically. So yeah, that is an introduction to one part of what our team does. Again, not a beautiful illustration, but hopefully it gives you an idea of like why we design systems the way that we do, why we make things complex, and yeah, that's the little brief overview.
Does anybody have like any questions about kind of what he just explained? It's more like a high level overview of how their system kind of works at Datadog, specifically on Alex's team. You mentioned you were like distributed systems, right? Okay.
Yeah, I am.
So any questions, anyone? Okay, perfect. So I actually did have a question like related to system design. It's kind of what do you think is like the key to succeeding in like those type of interviews? Do you think it's like more considering like edge cases, that sort of thing, or
Yeah, so I actually had a system design interview for Datadog, and it was mainly around designing a video game service, I think it was. And so some of the things that they encouraged me to think about was like, how are users going to interact with each other? How do you, handle a large bulk of users? How do you distribute load evenly? And I think it was, you know, doing some back of the napkin math. So, choosing how you're going to this is this is completely irrelevant to this, but like when you're talking about system design stuff, I think you should make sure that you're aware of the limits of some systems, right? So if you are told that you have 1 million users in your video game, you should know that, one server is not going to handle 1 million users at once. So you should use some sort of server distribution service. And then in order to balance load between them, you should use some sort of load balancer service. And I think it's working backwards from the requirements that you're given to build a system that can handle those requirements and just, being aware of some small nuances for what computers can really do.
yeah, I think that's like great advice. I haven't done like a system design interview yet, so I'm sure I'm gonna encounter one next year, and hopefully I think that'll help out a lot.
I do recommend the Grokking the System Design book too. I think it can explain what I'm trying to explain much better than I can, and it has like 25 different examples of systems that you can design. I think it does YouTube, it does Instagram, it designs web crawlers. So it's a really, really good resource for sure.
Definitely, yeah. That was actually like my next question is kind of like what helped you with that. Um, so the next question I had was I don't know if you have more on this. You kind of did talk about like a high level overview, but I was kind of interested in like what does the typical day look like for you? Kind of like what are the tasks you're doing on like a day-to-day basis? You hear a lot that it's like, people think that you're gonna code a lot, but really a lot of it is like meetings or, just understanding the problems you're dealing with. So
Yeah. I do think that maybe 40% of my job is coding, and I think that's because I'm a software engineer one that I actually code that much. I think the higher level you get, the less coding you do, and the more, documentation you write, the more meetings you lead, the more projects you sort of get involved in. So I think I write a significant amount of code compared to most people. And I think the day to day is it's like, you start with your stand up. You might have a couple one-on-ones with people on your team. You might have some unblocking sessions with a mentor or a manager. And your focus is really, not to just write code all the time and produce output, but it's to think about like maintainable code and writing documentation around the code that you write. And so, in this little drawing here, if I'm going to make a change to the replicator, I want to make sure that change is visible to everyone on my team so that when it finally goes and gets deployed to some production data center. If stuff breaks, everyone knows why it broke, and it's not just, moving in darkness. And I have a document about why I made this change. It's a lot about justifying decisions and, justifying designs and then talking about what can we improve with the current state of your system. And since we have this living, breathing thing, a lot of times stuff will just break during the day, and you kind of need all hands on the team to go and help fix something that your system broke, right? So it's definitely variable day to day, but I do write a lot of code and I do write a lot of documents for sure.
That's good to know as well. So that was kind of like about the present. So the next section we're going to talk about is your career paths and experiences. So you mentioned you didn't intern at DataDog, but you did have a previous internship. I believe it was at Nordstrom prior to being at DataDog. So can you share your experience kind of, going from that internship to, new grad recruiting and transitioning to a full-time engineer? Like, what was the difference really from being an intern to like full-time?
Yeah, so I did intern at Nordstrom. I did two internships there. One was remote, one was in Seattle. Much preferred the one in Seattle. And I think the experience of internships is really, I it might be controversial to say this, but it's not really to like work on crucial parts of the company's infrastructure when you're working there. It's more for them to try to improve you as an engineer and then try to recruit you for new grad and trust that you're able to handle the responsibilities of a new grad engineer. And so my first summer I spent at Nordstrom, I spent a lot of time, working on a project that was pretty separated from the rest of the team. And so if stuff were to break, it wouldn't have, broken a lot of the team systems. And it was some, UI for something that they wanted to expose to other customers. And I think I learned a lot about writing code. I wrote a lot of code, but I also learned a lot about working in a team. And I think the experience of being able to communicate what you're doing, communicate blockers you have, and talk to other teammates in a technical way is a great experience. I think Club Affinity and working for the software engineering club gave me that experience as well. So I was ready to handle that for the internship. Yeah, so I think a lot of that entails the career growth aspects of internship to full time, and not so much the you're going to work on critical stuff while you're an intern.
Yeah, and I kind of transitioned well. You mentioned a lot about like team experience as well. So you think that's like a key part is being in kind of team projects or team settings where you're able to like collaborate, handle any conflicts, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If your teammates don't like you, they're not gonna hire you back.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And then also you kind of want to enjoy the people that you work with, so you want to form relationships and you want them to respect you as well. So technical communication, even just banter between your teammates and even getting to know other interns and other people in the company, establishing a network really, really is probably the most valuable thing that comes out of being an intern.
100%, yeah. Um, you mentioned also Nordstrom was remote. I think this would be a good question because there are remote internships out there. I was actually going to do one this summer before I got my current offer. And do you mind talking about like how did you build and maintain relationships with your team members when in a remote environment? It's gonna be challenging. You're not like in person, to actually talk to these people, see them face to face, really. So yeah.
That is a good question. I mean, this is probably not applicable to everyone who's doing remote internships, but I went and visited my team members when they were, in Seattle and I was remote. If that's an option, I think it's great to see them face to face. But I don't think that's how you're looking for me to answer the question. I think being remote means that the onus is on you to sort of take the initiative to communicate and form relationships with your teammates. Sometimes your managers are going to set up one-on-one calls with you and they're going to want to talk to you about stuff. But really, if you want to have a relationship with your teammates, you should be proactive about it. So reaching out to them, reaching out to other people in the company. I know, as a full-time software engineer now, I would never say no to an intern who wanted to just have a chat or something, or So yeah, I think the advice there is like use your intern status and your naive status. Just try to talk to everyone you can at the company and be more proactive about it than you would have to be if you were in person.
I think that's like amazing advice. I also saw like this post recently. Um, like one thing that interns commonly fail on is only like communicating with one person for problems. And like when you're blocked on that and that team member isn't able to help you, you're kind of, screwed over. So I think definitely, like you mentioned, reaching out to as many people as you can, really the people with the most context, is probably the best way to go about it. And then we're gonna go
For
back
sure.
to DataDog. So you kind of talked about it a little bit in the overview. So it's your distributed system, so it's like more backend oriented. What is the tech stack like on that team? And then if you could talk about it, if not, it's perfectly fine. How does it kind of vary across different teams? Like maybe instead of being matched with distributed systems, you're matched with a different sort of team as well.
Yeah, Datadog is making a huge push to be a leader in Golang. So I think a lot of the legacy code, which legacy at Datadog means it was written less than 10 years ago still, so it's not that legacy because it's a pretty new company. But all the legacy code is written in Python. And so we have this giant mono repo that has every Python dependency in one single file, basically. And it's really hard to make changes there. So Datadog is migrating to have all their services written in Golang. All their backend services, I'll say. The front end is still in JavaScript in React. But a lot of Golang, and then Datadog is one of the biggest users of Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is a deployment platform. If you haven't heard of it, it gives you a lot of tools to be able to manage different clusters and Docker containers and choose how you want to deploy your services. So Datadog is one of the first adapters of Kubernetes, and they're one of the, not I guess market movers. They have a lot of Kubernetes code and a lot of specific things that they do. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff and sort of the DevOps deployment ops sort of workflow, Kubernetes is something you have to learn. It's very, very useful in the industry, and a lot of companies that have these giant backends running, they're deploying it with Kubernetes. So it's very relevant for any backend engineer. I think the programming language of like Golang versus Python is not too specific an issue. It didn't take me very long to learn Golang when I started, and I had never written a single line before. Um, it's kind of like Python, so it's not that, you know, complex to context switch there. But I think Kubernetes is like something that if you have that going into an interview or if you have that going into an internship or a full-time job, people are going to be impressed because that's a really, really useful skill to have.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I like that you kind of mentioned, that you're not going to know a lot of these languages ahead of time, and it's kind of just more, being able to kind of apply what knowledge you currently have, and reading documentation, to sort of help out with that as well. So now it's kind of we're going to transition to advice. Even though it's April, there's still like time to land, full-time roles or internships. Do you have any advice for students looking to land a software engineering internship or a new grad role?
Yeah, I think by this point, with the way the market is, a lot of it is really, really luck based. And that's kind of unfortunate. So some of the best students might not get internships and it's not their fault at all. And I'm lucky to say that I did get a full-time job at a pretty good company. But there are things you can do to boost your odds, I think. And one of the biggest ones there is getting a referral. So even before you get an interview, you have to actually like have a recruiter look at your resume and deem you worthy of an interview. And the way they do that is basically by looking at if you got referred or not. And I was referred for this position I have now. I was referred for all my internships. And I think, getting an interview with a referral is like a 100% better chance. So like the most important thing before you even start working on interviews and everything is like try to get a network and try to get people that know you, try to put your name out there, connect with anyone you can on LinkedIn. A lot of alumni will be happy to refer people. So yeah, make sure you have a referral before you go into that recruiting process. That's the number one thing I think.
Definitely, yeah. So do you have like you mentioned just like reaching out to people maybe on LinkedIn. You said school alumni is like a big key. Um, what do you think about like coffee chats? Do you think that's a great way also to kind of like get to know them, get to know their experience, and then set that up for a referral?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people are gonna say no off the bat, but from my experience, I'm usually pretty open to coffee chatting with former UF students just because I guess you want to, see what's going on at the university, keep in contact with, alum and everything. And so, uh, if 10 people say no, one person says yes, it might be a little demoralizing at first, but all you need is one yes to really get your foot in the door at a company. And I would highly recommend saying something like, "Hey, are you up for a 15-minute chat about your experience?" Or, even flatter their ego a bit, like, "Hey, you had a really cool journey and you're working at a really cool company. Can you tell me more about it?" kind of thing. I think that works sometimes, and you should just try it a lot so that it finally works.
100%, yeah. So now we're gonna transition to like advice for people that are gonna be in an internship this summer or a new grad role, starting, anytime soon. So what advice would you have for these people? Maybe this is their first software engineering experience, like something that's helped you.
Yeah, I want to say like read a lot of docs, but that sounds pretty boring. So I think the main thing that you should get out of an internship is that you improved as a developer or an engineer, right? And so don't just go in there and do stuff that you're already good at. I think it's just challenge yourself and, try to get your foot in the door in some sort of project that you have no clue about, or try to read and write some code that you don't really understand what it does, or try to get better at unit testing, or try to, start deploying some services somewhere. If you can push something to prod during an internship, I think that's awesome. That's an experience that not a lot of people have during an internship. So that's also a huge win. Yeah, just make sure that you're not, coasting, I guess is the right word there.
Yeah, I heard DataDog actually lets you guys like push to prod. I know you didn't do the internship with them, but I heard they let you guys like push to prod. I think it's like the first week or something like that. Heard
I
that.
I don't know. I'm sure some people have, maybe mistakenly, maybe on purpose, but yeah, yeah, it's pretty light development cycle here. So pushing to prod is not something that we're really scared of. Like it's something that we encourage.
Yeah, and definitely like that's a good way to like grow firsthand. You'll make a mistake, you're like, oh, like fuck, I messed up, and you'll learn from that. So, um, the next question I had was more about like the industry. What is something you wish someone had told you about the industry while you were still in college?
That's a good one. That is a good one. I think I wish I knew that it's not as easy as it looks on like the TikToks where people say day in the life kind of thing. Uh, I don't know. I came into this job thinking I was gonna work like 10 to 4 and go home happy every day with free food and everything. But it is like it is a job. I work probably more than 8 hours most days and I'm on a sweatier team and I really love what I'm doing, so it doesn't feel like pain. But I just wish I had come in with the expectation that it's not, as easy as some of the, TikTokers make it look.
Yeah, you'll see like I'm just in their cars, morning, like just easy. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
know, and they have fancy apartments, and everything. Like this is
yeah,
this is
yeah.
my entire room right here. Like it's not that glamorous. New York City's pretty
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah. And you were in Manhattan, or were you specifically?
Yeah, I'm in the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Oh, yeah, that gets pricey for sure. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's great advice. It's definitely like it's a learning experience, especially like if you're able to land an internship, you can kind of learn through that. And you really realize if you like it or not, because you don't want to continue doing something if it's, something you don't actually enjoy that you couldn't see yourself spending more than possibly 8 hours a day. Um, but yeah, that was kind of that was a good question as well. And then the last one is kind of to end things off. What's your plan over the next couple of years?
I'm lucky, like you said, I love my job. So I don't really have a plan to move on. I think I'm looking for a fast promotion and fast, like relatively fast. Like I just want to do well. Um, I don't plan on moving to a different company. I plan on probably staying in the same team or at least within the same infrastructure org that I'm in. I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think there's a lot of cool problems to solve. And I can see myself sticking here for the long run. Maybe not in New York. They let us move around a little bit, so maybe go to Denver, maybe take a trip out to San Francisco. We'll see where where life leads me, but I definitely am enjoying the work aspect right now.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good that they have like different offices. You get to like switch things up a little bit.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet ordeal.
Yeah. How do you think is like how do you feel like the growth is at DataDog?
I am really impressed. I don't know how it is at other companies because I've never worked at other companies, but I think my manager really wants, me to grow as an engineer. I think he wants me to get promoted. I think he wants me to like gain the skills that come with getting promoted. I think I've been handed a lot of responsibility and I think it's been recognized the work that I do. And I really appreciate the fact that like nothing is being like I don't feel like I'm forced to work. Like I feel like I can take the work I feel comfortable with, and I feel like they want to encourage me to do my best. And I'm happy with how they're recognizing what I'm achieving.
That's great to hear. So that's pretty much all the questions I have. Do the audience, you guys have any questions for Alex? Well, I did have a couple. Okay, great. Let's hear your listen question.
Um, when did you get your first internship?
My first internship was sophomore summer, um, and that was the one in Seattle at Nordstrom.
So, if you guys don't know, Nordstrom is actually like, I think it's a freshman sophomore specific internship. Am I wrong on that? Or
I don't I don't remember. I it might have been. I think there were juniors there. I'm not really sure if it was specific to any group.
yeah, the reason I mentioned that was because I think I had actually been in like that interview process. And I remember it being like a sophomore specific thing. So like that's something I definitely recommend is applying to these freshman sophomore programs if you are a freshman or sophomore. So there's things like Microsoft Explorer. I think Google just changed their name for some reason. It's like Google Associate Software Developer. Um, Meta, I think just ended theirs. But yeah, there's a ton of programs for you guys to apply to. Um, and even if you aren't able to get that, there's other opportunities. Like tomorrow, we're going to be talking about, an internship. If you're interested in like software engineering, there's also project management. You get to learn about that. But yeah. And then I did have a question also. We'll jumpstart this a little bit. Do you have any tips for people in New York City for the summer, like how to survive in NYC?
Yeah, I wish I paid cheaper rent. I think I cared too much about having a short commute to the office that I am living in an expensive area now in a shitty apartment. I think New York is awesome in the fact that there's five boroughs and you can live in any of them and still be 30 to 40 minutes away from anything else. Public transportation is great. Uh, Brooklyn is awesome. I don't know. I think just make sure that you're not overspending. I found myself, excited to have a nice cushy job and then now I am, sort of biting the bullet on budgeting and stuff. And I don't think that's the exciting thing to do. So come in with the mindset that, the world is not your oyster and you should try to make the most and be as scrappy as you can in New York because I think that's a better experience anyway.
Yeah, I think frugality is the key. I actually learned that word from Amazon, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of negative stuff you guys are hearing, but it's like it's the truth, like you'll be making money, but also like the places you'll be in are like super pricey. The commute could also be bad, especially in like New York or even if you don't have like public transport. Um, yeah, any other questions anyone has? Come on, I know you'll have some questions. All right, Antonio, yeah.
How was the on-call experience?
He said, I don't know if you heard him. He asked how was the on-call experience, and this was Antonio, by the way.
Oh, Antona, aren't you joining Datadog this summer?
Yes, sir.
Dude, I'll see you there. I'll hit you up, I'll make sure. On call is the worst. Um, our system breaks all the time and it breaks at 3 a.m. and we don't like we know why, but it's like a lot of work to fix a lot of this stuff and we're working on it. But I think in my last week of what we call reverse shadowing, which means I'm not on call alone yet. So I still have another engineer who's watching me while I'm on call. But it's still like you get woke up a lot. And this is not specific to Datadog on call, it's specific to just our team. But yeah, the expectation is you have your laptop within 5 minutes of you at all times. So, if I'm going on a run, I kind of just have to run circles around the apartment because I need to be home in 5 minutes. If I'm going to the gym, I need to bring a backpack. If I'm going to watch a Broadway show, I need to have my laptop with me. It definitely impacts your life in a negative way, but my God, do you learn a lot. I think I learned more in like a couple weeks of on-call than I learned in my first couple months of the company. So I will say it's a valuable experience, even though it is slightly annoying.
Anybody else have any other questions? Anything at all? All right, well, thank you for joining us, Alex. Everybody give it up for Alex. Oh, yeah, I was gonna stay on the call for maybe like a minute, a couple more minutes. I'll just talk to you and then.
Yeah, sure thing. And one last, if you guys want to connect on LinkedIn or if you want to reach out and have a coffee chat, like I think I talked to Antina about some stuff before. Like always happy to reach out and talk to former or current UF students.
And I'll share his LinkedIn for you guys as well if you guys want to reach out to him. Yeah, super.